Guys, in this video, I'm going to break down the M&M concept, and I'm not talking about Marshall Mathers. I'm not talking about Slim Shady. What we are talking about is math and mindset. Two things that every business owner absolutely has to have, but how do we get into leveraging both of them for our advantage strategically long term?
How can that apply to any business owner? What are some action steps or like some step-by-steps for them?
Yeah, you've got to have self-awareness around where you are and who you are as a leader. Most of the time, business owners are wearing 30 different hats, and we all start there. It's where every single one of us learn to be decent at everything, but taking it to the next level requires a different individual. You'll see in a lot of organizations, especially right now in the last year, you've seen tons of turnovers as CEOs, and it's because there's wartime CEOs, ones that are really good when things are tough, and there's ones for growth that are really good at growing and scaling to certain points, and then they're not good at the wartime stuff because they're really good at spending for growth, but they're not good at protective and defensive strategies around how do we survive during these times. Because right now, I don't know a single business owner that's actually thriving at a super high level. We're all growing, but it's not at that high level of growth that we're used to. It's a different mindset, and it's a different person that's equipped with different math equations in their head.
Does that mean that they have to hire someone new, or is it that they have to do what you did and bring in a consultant?
It could be both. We looked at a whole variety of situations that my team came to me with, and then we said, here's what's most likely going to get us there, and here's the cost that's associated with it. Are we willing to spend X amount of money to get us to that financial spot? Yeah, it's a big financial push to do that, but ultimately the reward on the backside of it will pay off, and it's a short-term push. So recently my media team was asking about, some big wins that had happened throughout this last week, and I was telling them that we actually had hired a consultant to come in and help scale certain parts of our business and point out blind spots to us along the way. And as we started talking about it, they were questioning, why did you choose to go through this process? What really happened behind the scenes to get you to this final decision point? If you would have asked me this 5 years ago, I would have started at this is a mindset to where I know I need to get there. I know that somebody else out there can get me there. I just don't know who it is. And, we'll figure out the cost of it on the backside. Where today I'm looking at this more from a math perspective of we have a deficit that we have to close on. And that is a math problem for us of we could have taken 20 different paths, 30 different paths to get to that final outcome. But what's the math that's associated? How much time am I going to lose trying to figure out which of these 20 or 30 pathways is actually going to get me to success? Which of the financial burdens are we going to incur because we took too long to get there? Because money loves speed, we have to be able to act fast. And often when you don't have the resources, it becomes the mindset of I'm just going to go solve it and I'm figure it out along the way. There's a time and a place for that level of resourcefulness, but as you start to acquire resources, as you start to have a war chest that you can pull from, then it truly becomes a math equation of how much am I willing to spend to solve this problem faster, more efficiently, without stepping on the landmines that I would have stepped on if I was just bullheading this through as a mindset problem. So oftentimes you can't start with one or the other. You have to actually start with both. And that's really strange for people of starting with two things at the same time, because can we really hold two ideas at the same time? Yes, we can. We can hold multiple emotions at the same time. It's what makes us uniquely human. So we can hold happiness and grief. We can hold math and mindset at the same time. And that we realize as we mature and as we solve higher level problems, that they're actually part of the same thing. So let's say that we didn't go through this. Well, what's the financial burden that we're not going to achieve our goals? What does that mean for my team? What does that mean for their families? What does that mean for me personally? Or the mindset of, hey, if we don't get there, this is what's going to happen. So by being able to hold both and be able to realize that this is the real contextual information that we have to have, how much am I willing to pay to get to that end spot and inside of what timeline? So that's exactly what we worked through, is how do we find the right person, which took the most amount of time in the decision, who was qualified, who do we trust, how much information are they going to need, what's the ramp up time, and then what are the end results that we're going to get out of it. And we took our own medicine on this because we often do this for other people in the lens of marketing and advertising. But because this is more operational in scale, that's not anything that we typically focus on internally beyond just our standard sales and marketing goals. But this is a organizational shift of how do we start to shift and make our organization more dynamic, more agile in order to get us to that end spot. So it's been a really cool few weeks as we've started to work through these problems going into 2025, knowing what our Q1, Q2 goals are, and having this roadmap as kind of an accelerant to push us into that final stage of growth that we want to hit for the end of this year while propelling with that momentum into early 2025.
Are you doing this for any business owners that you work with, any clients, like to any degree on them?
Yeah, it's with all of our consulting. A lot of what I get personally brought in for is this type of consulting, but on the marketing and advertising side. So a lot of companies make mistakes when they hire marketing teams to come in, and not just from the consulting side, but like, hey, I need a website and you guys are going to help me with Google ads or Facebook ads. A lot of them get screwed over because these agencies are really good at one thing, which is selling you on what they're going to provide, but then never providing it. And because they never had the strategy on how to implement or what all this stuff is actually going to do for them, what the real costs are, what they have to look for in the future, what the outcomes need to be for sustainable and controllable growth, they're just bought in on the idea of this marketing agency is going to get me rapid growth, or they're going to get me all these customers. I'm going to have a slick new website that's going to do all this cool stuff. But they never tied it back to the math behind it of what happens if this fails. What happens if I spend all this money and they don't actually ever give me my domain back, or they never turn over my website to me, or what's the financial cost if they own my ad accounts and I decide to leave them, or if I have to buy out of this contract. None of that ever gets considered. So a lot of what we get brought in for at this point is not just the neuromarketing side, which is what I really love doing, but also more the strategic planning around advertising and marketing within organizations around what are the assets that we need to have, how do we protect them, how do we use them for future growth, and then what do we need to look at for 2025? Do we have enough collateral? Are we telling our story well enough? Are we using the platforms the right way in order to get our message out there and communicate with our audience?